just based on math, Bitcoin has always at least 3x'd from previous all-time highs.
What's next for the Bitcoin price? Are we about to crash lower? Or how long will Bitcoin's price consolidation last? Watch today's whole video. Crypto investors are in disbelief. And click subscribe to Altcoin Daily for one video per day, keeping you informed about crypto. And starting with Bitcoin, in the United States, 15 states now have Bitcoin reserve bills, meaning even before the US government chooses to or not to buy Bitcoin.
The feasibility of a Bitcoin reserve, you said that's being studied. It's one of the first things that's on the table here.
These are the states that have proposed buying Bitcoin, putting it on their state treasury. And while here's a summary of the status of each individual state, some are further along, some have just begun. Do we think this number is getting smaller or growing bigger? And while that was US states, here are global nation states. Nation states are adopting Bitcoin. You can legally front run entire countries. Again, the United States is really the nation getting sort of the most press coverage out of all this. El Salvador has already crossed the finish line. They have Bitcoin in their reserves. But how this affects you and me, and how this affects Bitcoin price. Again, do we think these numbers are decreasing or increasing? Like the video to support me, also gets this information to more people, and something to keep on the radar, looking at on-chain metrics. The Bitcoin Advanced NVT signal is currently in buy territory. This indicates that we are currently extremely oversold given network transactions. The last time we reached these levels, Bitcoin was around $39,000, and then $58,000 before the price substantially rallied, meaning the last time this metric flashed like this, it was like buying Bitcoin right here or right here. The mainstream media won't share with you charts like this. I will. And for those of you that say, I'm quitting now, Bitcoin has probably already topped. This is Bitcoin's price performance since the halving, and post-price performance after every halving. This is where we are in the cycle. Of course, past performance does not indicate future performance, but all these metrics together, to me, paint a pretty clear picture. And looking at recent Ethereum news, the Ethereum ETFs secure 4 days of consecutive gains with inflows of 308 million, as Bitcoin ETFs rebound with $341 million in inflows, meaning institutional clientele are accumulating Ethereum and Bitcoin, both Ethereum and Bitcoin in the background. And here are my honest thoughts in a recent Cointelegraph interview on investing in Ethereum in 2025.
If I'm looking at Ethereum in 2025 specifically, I think you have to ask yourself, are you an investor or are you a trader? If you're a trader, then there's no reason to go to Ethereum, because Ethereum is more of a 5-year outlook, 10-year outlook. I think the fact that we're seeing all these L2s build on ETH, I think that's huge fundamental signal value in the long term that ETH will be here for the next cycle in 4 years and 8 years. Doesn't mean Solana won't be here too. ETH still has competition unlike Bitcoin, but I think just the fact that we're seeing the value accrual on these layer 2s, huge signal to me that Ethereum will be here.
And any traders out there that want 20% cashback limited time on the money you deposit, link down below, and you must use code Altcoin Daily, and you must actually click enter the campaign, link down below. And breaking news, this is not a joke, MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor's company, has just rebranded to Strategy and unveils their Bitcoin-inspired logo. So they dropped the micro. Now it's just Strategy. It's cleaner. And huge piece of news for RWA, that's real world asset cryptocurrencies, before we get to Lake. It turns out that Larry Fink, you've seen this clip before, was right.
We believe the next step going forward will be the tokenization of financial assets. And that means every stock, every bond.
The news today is that Ondo Finance unveils tokenization platform to bring stocks, bonds, and ETFs on-chain. Ondo on Tuesday introduced Ondo Global Markets, Ondo GM, which is a platform to bring all these real-world traditional financial assets on their blockchain. And here's exactly what you need to know. While the specific details regarding which stocks, bonds, and ETFs will be available is not known yet, Ondo, with a market cap of over 600 million, is already the world's third largest tokenized treasury issuer, Also, another real-world asset protocol to put on your radar is Lake, or Lake 3. They're disrupting the water economy. So just like Ondo Finance is disrupting and tokenizing financial real-world assets, Lake is focusing on maybe the largest real-world asset, water. Here's their COO at a recent Bitcoin conference explaining.
Both our Lake ecosystem combined with the Lake 3 token give you access to the most consumed RWA on this planet, water.
And to be clear, they're not tokenizing water. No tokenization. Lake 3 connects the water industry and blockchain without tokenizing the water itself. Most of you have probably seen them if you're a fan of the wolves. But let me share with you this 60-second clip on what Lake is, then I'll explain.
On one side, you have a huge demand, all of us, 8.1 billion people who need water on a daily basis. And on the other side, you have actually also a huge supply, trillions of liters of untapped spring water available around the world, but not exploited yet. So you have this huge demand, and you have also this huge supply that can answer this demand. But what's missing? It's a connector in between.
So Lake is sponsoring this segment of today's video. The opportunity in terms of how much untapped supply there is and how much demand there is daily use for water globally, to me is pretty clear. The problem they're solving is giving you, or giving anybody, direct access to the purest water, because this is the system today. Middlemen on middlemen on middlemen. Lake is using the blockchain to connect the globe directly. And the news today is this: they continue to secure different water sources around the world. Actually, mid last year, they secured their first partnership with a Swiss spring, giving access to millions of liters of water to the Web3 space. Recently, at the end of last year, they announced a partnership with Zilia, high-quality spring water. And of course, while they've already been on Uniswap, they just got accepted to MEXC. It's finally happening. Lake 3 token is live and tradable on MEXC. Link down below. But Lake is a real-world asset project I think you definitely want to keep on the radar. We also have big news if you're invested in XRP. Ripple says the XRP ledger is back online after an hour-long network halt. In a direct quote from CTO David Schwartz, he says, "It looked like consensus was running, but validations were not being published, causing the network to drift apart." He added validator operators had to manually intervene to choose a sane starting point to build enough consensus to pull the network over to a coordinated ledger stream. Now, why this happened is still being looked at. I believe kind of similar to what we have seen in the past from Solana. The Solana blockchain got so much use, they were sort of overloaded and they had to pause and reset. Of course, Ripple's X account noted that all customer funds remained safe throughout the incident. Also, as node operators pointed out, all 35 nodes were back validating transactions. So they only have 35 nodes. And a really significant interview I just gave with Cointelegraph. I'll play a piece, but I do encourage you to check out the whole thing. This is my Bitcoin outlook for the next 12 months.
Last year when we talked, you gave a prediction for Bitcoin price for this bull cycle. You were saying around something 120,000. Back then, the Trump factor was not there yet. So maybe now you have reformulated your prediction for the end of this bull cycle.
I was saying 120 cycle top for Bitcoin back in 2023. So when Bitcoin was around between $20,000 and $30,000, sentiment could not be lower. And there was no ETF. That wasn't even in the zeitgeist to retail at that time. And the reason I said that is just based on math. Bitcoin has always at least 3x'd from previous all-time highs for its new cycle top in the new cycle. For example, in 2017, it was around 20K. It 3x'd to a little over 60K. Now we also have diminishing returns. So let's say only 2x's, and let's take our cycle top from 2021, which is 69. Let's bring it down to 60 and say it only 2x's. That's 120. And that was always my base case. Bare minimum, if nothing else, I think we'd get that. Trump really, now the beauty of not just Trump, but anything, if you get closer to the finish line, you get more data. And it is easier to pinpoint exactly where you believe, an outcome will be to me, Trump really changed maybe my outcome on altcoins, on where they're going to be in the future, because I think Bitcoin is grinding up regardless. But I'm going to keep, Giovanni, my base case, my most conservative case at 120. Now, I think my mid case, or the thing I most believe, is I think it's very realistic to see a 140, high end 160 Bitcoin towards the end half of this year, maybe into 2026. The only thing Donald Trump related that would change my mind on that is if the United States actively starts buying Bitcoin, not just holding the stockpile they already have, but it goes through Congress. They're buying 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years. That's a game changer. That was not priced in. That would send my price target, at least for the short term, end of this year, beginning of 2026, around 200,000 BTC. Now, the big difference is that 5-year plan for 1 million Bitcoin, that lasts over 5 years. So really, it also changes my outlook next cycle and the cycle after that. But for this spike cycle specifically, 140 to 160, end of this year, very realistic, in my opinion.
Awesome.
Giovanni, how about you, man? How about you? You have your pulse on the market. You interview some of the best people in this space. You've been in this space a long time. Realistically, when your friends ask you this, what do you think for this cycle?
I'm also quite conservative. I would say 120.
Click subscribe for daily updates, and like always, see you tomorrow.